This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Straight ahead this Sunday, November 24th, 2024, remembering former Governor Jodi Rell, who died this past week at the age of 78. We'll take a look back at her remarkable career and the tributes pouring in. Plus, a second grader fighting leukemia, attracting the attention of UConn and the Hurleys. And speaking of UConn, it's a slam dunk for Gino Auriemma, his record-breaking new title. But first up, the life and times of former Connecticut Governor Jodi Rell. The 78-year-old died at a hospital in Florida following a brief illness. Just the second woman to become governor in Connecticut history and the last Republican to serve in that role. She became governor during one of the most tumultuous periods in Connecticut politics following the resignation of Governor John Rowland. News 8's Ken Pierce begins our team coverage today with a look back at her remarkable career.
And that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of the office of governor to the best of your abilities, so help you God.
I will.
Jodi Rell became governor under shocking circumstances. Governor John Rowland abruptly resigned in the middle of a corruption investigation. His longtime lieutenant governor took over, promising to heal the state.
It's crucial that the people of Connecticut know that they have a leader who wants to restore dignity, wants to restore civility, and bring government back the way it used to be.
Rell started her career in politics as a state rep from Brookfield in 1984. Rowland tapped her to be his running mate in 1994, and he resigned in 2004. She had to make her way through a flurry of new media attention to get her message out there.
Let me first assure you that we have made tremendous changes.
Rell went on to win a term of her own in 2006 with an overwhelming win over New Haven Mayor John DeStefano. She decided not to run again in 2010. As she was leaving office, she told News 8 chief political reporter Mark Davis that she did her best to save the taxpayers' money and get the state's finances back on track.
You may remember that in the last two budgets that I have put out, I have tried to cut spending, consolidate agencies, eliminate boards and commissions.
But, she said, Democrats stopped her at every turn. Rell survived breast cancer, mourned the death of her husband a decade ago. In one of her most recent public appearances, she spoke about the importance of opposing parties working together. She shared the stage with Governor Lamont last year.
Things are going to be different, but there's no reason why we can't be fair and polite to each other and work together.
I'm Kent Pierce, News 8.
That's my conversation with the man who was Governor Rell's number 2 and right-hand man. And with us now is the former Lieutenant Governor of our great state, Michael Fidelli. Lieutenant Governor Fidelli, good to see you here. I know it's under sad circumstances.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
What was your reaction when you first heard the news?
I was shocked. I was shocked. Very unexpected. I know that Jodi was, enjoying retirement, and she was down in Florida. And when I heard it, I said, wow, what a tragedy for a great public servant, a great woman who not only served the state, but was just an incredible person to know. And it's a great loss for us all.
Let's go way back to when you first met Governor. When did you meet her?
Well, I met her in 1993. I was a freshman legislator, and she was, I think, an assistant minority leader, her and Bob Ward.
Okay.
And, she was very cordial, pleasant, say, hey, look, if you need anything. Then I think in 94 is when Governor Rowland tapped her to run with him as lieutenant governor, and she then left. They won and left. And then we obviously interacted in my 10 years in the legislature while she was lieutenant governor. And when I left the legislature, we said hello, goodbye, and I was always ready to serve. And then back in 2006, early part of 06, I received a phone call and said, hey, thinking about this, what are your thoughts? And we started talking, and the rest is history.
So how did that work? Did she call and offer you the job right away? Or did she say, I'm looking at a lot of people, would you be interested?
She was looking at other folks. And she said, I'd like to talk to you if you're interested. And, I remember going up to the residence and having the verbal interview with the governor. And, she kind of laid out what she was looking for. She was looking for someone who obviously had legislative experience, who could work with both sides of the aisle, was respected by the legislature, and someone who really wanted to work as aggressively as she did with the agenda that she had. And, the good news is those were all her characters. That she had, respect to the legislature, being bipartisan, and getting the job done. And she then called me weeks later and said, hey, let's have lunch up at the residence, and here we are.
And she offered you the job.
She offered me the job, yep.
What was she like to work with?
She was a great lady. She knew what she wanted to do. If you didn't think that was what you wanted to do, she listened. and kind of told you why it was the thing we needed to do. And the amazing thing about her, I found, was she could walk into a room with 2 people or 2,000 people. And as soon as she walked into that room, everybody knew her. But they didn't. But she had that aura of, it's okay. You can approach me. People would approach her. They felt comfortable in talking to her. They felt assured that she was listening and that something would be done. And that, I got to tell you, looking back then and even in today's world of politics, that's not around.
How was her management style? Because some governors are out there discussing everything in the public, and she was more of the type who would have these meetings behind the scenes and you know, sort of make her case. How did she do that in terms of? Yeah,
we worked well together.
Management?
You know, we had agenda. Obviously, my background was business and economic development, and she said, "Run with it. You know, let's talk about it. Let's see what can be done. Let's grow this business environment here in Connecticut, small business, corporations." She was very supportive of all the things I did. She obviously laid out her plans and what she wanted to do, but she was very good in sharing what she wanted to do with not only myself, but with the other commissioners, and listened well, but also gave direction very well.
She had a very high approval rating.
She did.
And but yet she decided not to seek another term in 2010. What was the decision-making process behind that? Did she discuss it with you as to why she didn't want to do it again?
No, you know, when it all came down and she decided she didn't want to do it, you know, she was tired. You know, she wanted to enjoy life. You know, if you think about it, she spent a number of years in the governor's office by her own right. As
4 terms that they were there together.
Yeah, and then she was in the legislature for 10. And then, you know, so when you start adding it up, I mean, I added up my own small world, and it was 18 years, you know. So you get tired. And I think she just felt she had done a lot of good things for the state, had done some good things that she wanted to get done from the agenda perspective, and thought it was time to move on and enjoy life and see her with her family and grandchildren.
What should her legacy be?
I tell you, she has an incredible legacy, and not because of the things she did, which were important, because remember, she came in at a time in state government where there was a lot of turmoil, and she basically said, it's okay, I'll take care of it, and we'll be all right. And that steady hand, she put together some the public financing of campaigns. She restored the integrity, hopefully in the minds of the voting public, and she just did her job. And I think if anyone was to look at her legacy, they need to look at her as Jodi Rell, the person, Jodi Rell, the public servant, and Jodi Rell, someone not only really cared about this state, not from the perspective of I'm always looking to go to higher office and do something, from the perspective that I care and I'm going to do the right thing.
She was viewed as sort of like a grandmother or a mother to the state.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Bob.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, Bob Engelhart used to, you know, draw her as Snow White in the cartoons, but you know, she was that, and that's what I meant by when she walked into a room, people felt very comfortable in approaching her. She was very warm. She was very easy to talk to, even you know, a complete stranger, let alone someone who knew her and worked with her. You could tell her anything, and she would give you her honest opinion.
She's the last Republican to win a statewide race in this state. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
You know, I think that goes way beyond being nice and the party. I just think that everybody nowadays, Dems and Republicans, need to do a lot of work and really pay attention to what Jodi Rell did. Jodi Rell really cared about the people that she served. Jodi Rell really cared about the people that she surrounded herself with. And if you look at some of the chatter now on the networks about why we lost and didn't, there's a sense that people have lost that there's this elitist world that, you know, hey, we know what's best for you. Jodi Rell knew what was good, but she also listened, and she knew what was good and what was needed to be done.
I asked her once in 2008, as we know, John McCain, who was running for president, picked Sarah Palin, governor of Alaska. There were only, I believe, 2 female Republican governors in the country at that time, and Jodi Rell was the other one. Was there ever any discussion like, hey, you know, they should have picked Governor Rell?
Yeah. I mean, you know, she just had a style, and I don't think it was a style. I think that was generally her. I remember, you know, as I said, back when I first met her in the legislature, and during the years before I went to the governor's office, that was just her style. She cared. She was warm. She was inviting. She listened. Even though she may not have agreed with you, she listened. And sometimes you could change her mind. And sometimes, you know, you got what she meant.
Former Lieutenant Governor Mike Fidelli, we appreciate you being with us here today, sharing your memories of the late Governor Jodi Rell.
Thank you, Dennis, for letting me do that.
Best of luck to you.
Yes, thank you.
Just ahead, we'll take a look back at one of Governor Rell's first interviews after Governor Rowland stepped down. We'll be right back. Jodi Rell ascended to the highest political office in the state of Connecticut during chaotic times, the resignation of Governor John Rowland. Now we'll look back at that time in her own words with former Chief News 8 political correspondent Mark Davis.
The Lieutenant Governor arrived at the state capitol at about the same time as always. But now she is swamped by reporters from all over the region trying to get some snippet of what's going to happen next. Following last night's resignation address by Governor Rowland, life for M. Jodi Rell has changed forever. She was escorted to our interview by Kathy Hinch, who has been her press secretary for the past 5 years. She has already brought in another person to help out. She told me that since Rowland's address, she has been busy on the telephone. She says members of both political parties have pledged their support, and she made a pledge back.
It's crucial that the people of Connecticut know that they have a leader who wants to restore dignity, wants to restore civility, and bring government back the way it used to be. I want people to be proud of being a person from Connecticut. I want people to be proud of calling Connecticut home, and the best way to do that is to start right from the top. I will be that top.
I'm sure no one disagrees with those great words, but how are you going to do that? A number of people have suggested to us and to others that you really ought to clean house. Will you ask for the resignation of all the existing commissioners so that you can either reappoint them or replace them at your will?
Well, first of all, I am not the governor yet, and I will be sworn in, as you know, on the 1st of July. Right. And after that date, my first order of business as far as meetings will be to have a meeting with all of the commissioners. Some may want to stay, some may be asked to leave, others will decide to leave on their own. We'll see at that time.
We do know that Governor Rowland is going to be eligible for a pension when he turns 55. He's only 47. We do know from the stories that we've done and the hearings before the Committee of Inquiry that he's in some financial difficulty. Would you consider or support some sort of separation agreement that is a severance arrangement for Governor Rowland?
That has not been an issue, has not been something that has been brought up. It is not something that I think is necessary at this time. He, as a former state employee, will be entitled to the benefits that are prescribed by law. I suspect that that would be sufficient.
She also says she will be assessing the governor's staff over the next week or so and determining who will stay and who might be replaced. From the state capitol, Mark Davis, News Channel 8.
And when we come back, we'll hear from Governor Lamont and former governors Rowland and Malloy. There are 3 living governors of Connecticut, 2 former and 1 current, Governor Lamont. News 8's Mike Cerulli spoke to all 3 about what Jodi Rell meant to them and our state.
I know what she meant for the state. She was a great friend for me as well. You know, I love what she stood for, but I loved her as a human being and as a person.
Words of loss and remembrance from Connecticut's sitting governor Ned Lamont, and similar high praise from Dan Malloy, the governor who followed Jodi Rell after she left office.
The governor was just a wonderful human being, very kind, very calming. She was an exceptional individual.
John Rowland, the governor who chose Rell to be his number 2 and whose resignation amid a corruption investigation led to Rell assuming the top job, said she was an indispensable partner.
Jodi was really a partner. I mean, maybe governor, lieutenant governor, but she participated in everything. Our budget discussions, we went through 9/11 together. We had a lot of issues. In a small state like ours, we could cover a lot of territory.
Governor Lamont, a Democrat, said he developed a close friendship with Rell, a Republican. He reiterated something we heard from political leaders across the aisle, that Jodi Rell was respected by all and had views that sometimes transcended party lines.
Something that was considered very avant-garde civil unions for our gay brothers and sisters that led the way to being one of the first states to allow gay marriage.
Another thing we heard from officials of all stripes was praise for how Rell instilled confidence at a time of great uncertainty for state government. Her calm demeanor, a beacon of stability.
She had a way of being almost maternal. She was great at taking care of people and comforting and caring. And that's the way she felt about the state of Connecticut as well. She felt that she was the maternal person that was always taking care of our community.
It was Mike Cerulli reporting. Another prominent Connecticut politician and close friend of Jodi Rell, Linda McMahon, responded to the news. I reached out to her, but because of her involvement in President-elect Trump's transition team, she is unable to do interviews at this time. But instead, she put out a statement saying, quote, she's deeply saddened about the passing of her good friend, calling Rell, quote, a dedicated public servant whose thoughtful leadership and kind demeanor helped Connecticut through many difficult times. And she posted this picture here. She loves our state and its people. Her dedication and approach to public service is the gold standard to which we all should aspire to. That from Linda McMahon. And while Governor Rell may have spent several years working in the Capitol in Hartford, the former governor called Brookfield home. And the residents there have welcomed her with open arms over the years. News 8's Jodi Rell reports on the impact Governor Rell had on that western Connecticut town.
Jodi was a good friend, a good neighbor.
Betsy McGilvain says Governor Jodi Rell was always there when she needed neighborly types of things.
Neither one of us had much parking, so when need be, we would shift the cars over to her driveway or ours.
McIlvain is also on the board at the Brookfield Library, where a portrait of Jodi Rell and her husband Lou has hung for as long as she can remember.
She did help us get a state grant to replace all our computers. She was always a vocal supporter of the library.
And that meant a lot to McIlvain and many in this western Connecticut community.
Jodi has touched so many people in Brookfield. You won't find a single person in Brookfield who won't say nice things about Jodi Rell. You won't. And it's a really sad day for us.
Brookfield First Selectman Steve Dunn says he met Jodi Rell 30 years ago in a local deli.
She's incredibly kind. I knew she was in a hurry to go somewhere, but she sat there and talked to me for 10 minutes.
She was a state representative at the time, and through the years, they would always keep in touch. He is a Democrat, and she was a Republican, but he says that didn't matter too much.
She was able to transcend political parties, bring people together.
He says she was also able to get a bypass built between I-84 and the Super 7.
We've had about $150 million in development in our downtown because we got that bypass.
The governor really had a lasting impact on this town and in particular this library. So it is certainly a place she will always be remembered. McIlvain can't remember why this picture was hung.
It's going to mean something to people again.
But she says it may serve as a reminder to future generations about the governor who called this town home. In Brookfield, Tina Dittel, News 8.
Jodi Rell was not just a governor, but a mother and a grandmother. Later in the broadcast, some photos her children wanted us to share with you. I first met the governor way back when she was lieutenant governor, tasked with saving the Hartford Whalers during that ticket drive. And I interviewed her several times over the years. I was honored when she asked me to MC her inaugural ball in 2007 when this photo was taken. Governor Rell was always friendly and fun to talk to, and my condolences to her family. Of course, that photo album coming up later in the broadcast. When we come back, the story of a young fighter in the battle of his life. And we invite you to connect with us. You can email us or find me on social media. We'll be right back. UConn coach Dan Hurley's wife, Andrea, told me I needed to do a story on a patient she knows at Connecticut Children's, where she volunteers. She told me this kid is awesome, and he's battling leukemia. I sat down with Ben this past week, and Mrs. Hurley is right. He's a great kid, and while I was there, we got some encouraging information about his fight to get better.
I like to play sports. I love video games.
This is Ben Rabinowitz of Brantford, but his home lately has been Connecticut Children's. What is it like to be here at Connecticut Children's?
It feels fine.
It feels fine? But you're looking forward to getting better?
Yeah.
Ben's parents, Sean and Kara, have been living here too.
It is daunting as a parent for your child to be sick, but you know, we have a lot of support around us. We're confident in his medical team, the people taking care of him on a daily basis, and you know, kind of look for some bright spots.
Ben was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in 2023. His story caught the attention of UConn coach Dan Hurley and his wife Andrea, which melted the hearts of Sean and Kara, who are both UConn alumni.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're big UConn fans, and we actually, the first time I think we met her, Dr. Moss told him that he had no disease left. So that was, she was actually in the room. And I don't know, just they have this platform and they're using it for good.
The Hurleys helped spread the word of Ben's need for a bone marrow transplant, and we can report today a match has been found.
Wow. What does a transplant mean exactly? Like, what does that entail?
So the way I look at it is you have a broken part, right? And you try to fix the part with chemo, and if the part doesn't work, you got to replace the whole thing. And so what we've realized is the chemo can't fix the part, so we got to... Are you laughing at my explanation?
Ben's transplant will take place soon, and his doctor, Michael Isikoff, told me that's because it was relatively easy to find a donor match. Many other kids are still waiting.
Yeah, bone marrow, you need to have a match. And if you are a white person, which makes up most of the population, you often will have a match. The challenge becomes for different minority groups that are often not as populated in the pool. It can be challenging to find a donor, especially for people of Hispanic descent, African Americans, and especially Native Americans.
As for Ben, he still has a long road ahead, but he knows he won't go through it alone.
What do you think of all these things people send you? What is it like?
It's cool to see him.
It's cool to see.
Feel better?
Yes.
How many friends do you think you have?
Over 1,000.
You're going to have a lot more than 1,000 after today. Well, before we say goodbye, a record-breaking night for Gina Auriemma this week. Now the winningest coach in Division I college basketball history, breaking that record with an overwhelming victory over Fairleigh Dickinson. We all knew this moment was coming, but still an amazing feat. Before the game even started, they celebrated the 40-year partnership of Auriemma and associate head coach Chris Daly. Auriemma now has 1,217 victories, and this game was a star-studded event. More than 60 former players at the game to support Auriemma. Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Rebecca Lobo, the list goes on. Governor Lamont was even there to help celebrate, and he brought a new sign with him. I love this. A record-breaking night for Auriemma, who is still trying to process all of this.
It's about just coming here every day and trying to be better than we were yesterday. And the frustrations that go along with that, the fun things that go along with that, when you see players get better, when you see them do things that they didn't think they could do. And now we look back 40 years later, and I would say, I don't know how much I helped them get what they wanted, but they helped me get everything I wanted. So thank you.
And they even gave him a goat. A pretty cool ceremony. A well-deserved night of honor for the beloved and successful coach. More on Governor Rell next. On Capitol Report, we'll leave you with some memories of Governor Rell, the private person, the mother and the grandmother. These are from her children, Michael and Meredith.